Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching here on YouTube. Today, we're going to share a list of Canadian down payment assistance programs that will help first-time homebuyers get into a home. We'll break down who is qualified, how you can apply, and what, if any, repayment methods are required by a borrower. And finally, we're going to talk about current pre-built condo prices. Once again, thanks for joining us. I'm your host, principal broker for Cannect Home Financing, Justin Turner, and I'm sitting here with the founder of Cannect and my best friend, Marcus Safaris. Why don't we get right into it? And we'll go through these amazing slides that producer Matt put together, and we'll talk about the first-time homebuyers incentive, which I'm very excited about. I feel like a lot of people need to know about this. Tell us about it.
So the government of Canada created a program to help first-time homebuyers access money to supplement their down payment.
Okay.
So it depends on, first, you have to qualify as a first-time home buyer. Means that it is your first time buying a house, or you're divorced, separated, whatever. So you're buying another house for the kind of first time. And there are some repayment aspects to it that are crystallized, that are pretty firm in how you're going to repay it. But generally speaking, the government of Canada wants to give you between 5 and 10% of the purchase price of your home to help you access home ownership if you're first time home buyer and kind of, middle class. There are limits on it. So in order to qualify for it, anywhere other than kind of Toronto, Vancouver, you have to make less than $120,000.
Okay.
And that also sets the amount, the dollar amount that they're going to give you and the purchase price of the property that you're looking at, because they'll only approve a borrower who has $120,000 or less in income for a property that doesn't exceed 4 times the income of the borrower.
Right.
So think, 120 means $480,000 as a purchase price outside of GTA and Vancouver. But since, most of the people that we speak to are, in large urban centers, it's 150,000 and then 4 times 150. So think $600,000 purchase price.
Okay.
So to drill into it a little further, $600,000 purchase price. If you are buying a new home, so new product, you get 10%.
Okay.
If you are buying an existing product, so resale, 5%.
Okay.
So 5% of the value. So we're talking about trying to get 30 grand on a resale home purchase given to you to help you with your down payment.
Okay.
Way it works, you've got to get approved for that mortgage, inclusive of the amount that you're getting. So the stress test on it. And then they will supplement that amount. The federal government approves you for it, like a grant almost, I suppose, based on the qualifying criteria. And you receive that money before closing.
Okay.
Then you have to repay the money.
Right. If you're enjoying this conversation, please be sure to hit the like button, as it really makes a difference on the YouTube algorithm. So how do you, what's repayment look like? How do you pay it back?
Okay, so the program started off and it was just like, okay, we're going to give you 5% or 10%. Let's just say 5 because, the assumption that it's a new home is probably less likely than someone buying a resale.
Right.
So, let's use an example. Justin is buying his first house, $600,000, and he's getting supplemented $30,000. Initially, you're receiving 5% from the federal government. The federal government will want to be repaid 5% of the home's value when you sell it.
Okay.
And the maturity on it is 25 years. So if by the 25-year mark you haven't repaid it and you haven't sold it, 5% of the appraised value of the house at the 25-year mark.
Okay.
So you bought it for 600, let's say it's worth $1 million. Afterwards, you're paying $50,000 back,
Mhm.
and you extinguish the incentive, the loan, let's call it.
Mhm.
It's kind of like a second mortgage,
Mhm.
but it's just tied to the increase in the value of the property.
Okay.
So then, more recently, the federal government uh, kind of provided more clarity on the repayment, and they've added in this factor where it is the um, lesser of either 8% interest count, kind of an 8% return on an annualized basis,
Okay.
not compounded, on the amount that you've been provided up until the day that you're going to repay it.
Mhm.
Or if the property value has dropped in value, the federal government will take an 8% drop in the amount of money that they've provided on an annualized basis to the point that you're paying out.
Interesting.
In addition, if you bought this house for $600,000 and you sell it for $400,000, the federal government will take the $10,000 hit. So they gave you 30 grand to buy a house. It was 600,000. You sold the house for 400,000. Their equity stake in your home is $20,000.
Yeah.
It's almost like a fractional share ownership
Yeah. They're like business partners.
of the home that you're doing a deal with the federal government.
Mhm.
The federal government is like saying, okay, listen, we will invest alongside first-time home buyers. We'll give them 5 to 10% of the value of the property on purchase, but we want to be repaid commensurate with how much we provided
Mhm.
based on the increase, subject to this kind of the lesser of 8% per annum increase or decrease.
Interesting.
But if you look at it for like 25 years, it's probably, who knows, right? But you're probably going to end up paying the equity equivalent, not the 8% annually.
Yeah.
And that 8% number is starting to look a hell of a lot more realistic in an environment when 5-year fixed rates are 6%. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hard to think that the government is actually going to lose on this program.
Listen,
I mean, unless you bought it at the end of last year and you're now selling it now.
yeah, yes, for sure. Especially given property values have dropped now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if I wasn't a homeowner already, I would be really excited about this. Now, the big question though is like, who is eligible? Like, who can get this? Is it just like a free for all? Like, tell us about that.
First time home buyers.
Okay.
First time home buyer, meaning you have not purchased a house before,
Okay.
or you're separated, broken up, and you need to buy another house.
Mm-hmm.
There, you recently experienced the breakdown of a marriage or common law partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and you're allowed to do it. Or you didn't occupy a home that you or your spouse owned in the last 4 years.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're a first-time home buyer if you haven't owned a home in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Kind of re-entering the market.
Mm-hmm.
Or breakdown of a marriage and you need to re-enter for a new home.
Right.
I think they just really don't want to encourage like people with multiple homes supplementing their down payment with this federal program.
No, of course. Because that's already where my brain was going.
Well, keep this in mind, right? The mandate for the federal government is to make home ownership more affordable,
mm-hmm.
right? It's been a big kind of tagline in their election promises. Anytime we hear them talk about housing, they talk about how they want to make it more affordable,
mm-hmm.
which is ironic considering the biggest impact to housing affordability is just how much money the federal government provided in stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
And that stimulus inflated everything, thereby making home ownership further out of reach. And that same stimulus then forced us to increase interest rates significantly, thereby further putting home ownership more out of reach. Well, listen, it's a drop in the bucket in relation to the dramatic impact that inflation had on housing prices,
mm-hmm.
and that the attempt to reduce inflation by increasing interest rates has now had on affordability.
Right.
So you've these massive, economic shifts that are happening that have really heavily impacted housing affordability. And the federal government's come up with a program to give you 5% towards the purchase of your home. I don't know how much that's going to do. And honestly, I think you have a hard time finding a $600,000 house in the GTA, which is part of the problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's been many times where I've gone through this process with my clients, and it's just, the equation to get to what you're eligible for as a purchase price it's very difficult depending on what market.
Yeah. So that's another thing. It actually impacts your affordability, because for this program, the value of the home can only be 4 times your income.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're really qualifying for a mortgage, you can stretch that to like 4.5 times your income, like to meet the GDS and TDS eligibility requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like how many borrowers are going to have bang on the number of 150 in order to realize a $600,000 purchase price? Also kind of complicated. I think this works for like somebody buying a $600,000 condo, like a new construction condo. You are buying it's going to be $1,000 a foot. You're buying a 600 square foot unit. You're going to get 10% of the purchase price. I think that's where this program,
the real savings
is going to really kick in. I think the more the more knowledgeable people become on it, right? Which is part of the reason why we're doing the show today.
You know what? The condo we covered in the last episode
would be a great example. Producer Matt would be a great example of this working.
Go check out episode 52. Be sure to visit makemoneycount.com to find all of our old episodes.
I do think that there's a real promise for this in markets outside of Toronto, though. Like perhaps Leamington or somewhere like
Leamington for sure.
Leamington, yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're excited. We know how we're going to pay the money back. We know who's eligible, and then how do I get it? Like, how does that work? So, step 1, there's 2 application forms that you have to fill out. You can type in CMHC First Time Home Buyers Incentive, and those application forms will come in, or you'll be directed to them either way.
Yeah, it has its own website.
Yeah. The other great way to get find out where the application forms are to call Cannect or another broker, some other broker, anyone.
I mean, if you call another broker, we'll cry a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit, but we know where they are. So once you've completed these 2 very simple application forms, you either give them to your lender or, of course, your broker, perhaps Cannect, and we can submit these to the lender for you. After that, you would submit the package to your lawyer. So your lawyer would need to be in the know that you're applying for this program. And then just before closing, you need to make sure to contact F&F, who is going to facilitate the transaction for you in terms of the incentive plan. So yeah, it's just that simple. That's how you apply. So now we've gone through, we know how we're going to pay it back. We know who's eligible. We got excited. We know how much we're going to have to pay back. So we know what we're getting into. We know who's eligible. We know how to apply. And now, when do they need to give the money back?
All right, listen, 25 years.
Yeah.
Selling the property, breaking up. You want to pay out your partner. But Matt has it so nicely put here. So yeah, you go through a breakup and you want to buy out the co-borrower. If this requires additional insured funds, you must pay back the incentive in full. Porting your mortgage. That's a weird one, but I guess it's because you're selling the one property and you're moving to the other one. So you got to pay it out.
Oh, right. I actually read that differently, but yes, porting your mortgage.
And then a partial release of security is considered a sale.
Right.
What does that mean?
I think that we're talking about refinancing your property.
Anytime a refi happens?
Yeah.
So you can't refi without paying them back?
No, you cannot. Because I've done this before. So you cannot refinance unless you pay them back. So once you get that incentive product in place, you wouldn't be able to do anything with your first mortgage until you've paid it back.
Kind of like a second mortgage again, right? Just
Yeah,
like a second
exactly.
mortgage,
Exactly. Yeah. I always tell clients, they always say like, well, can I do something with my first mortgage and leave my second in place? When you go to the grocery store, you can't get to the front of the line without excusing yourself from the people from the back of the line, right? So aside from this, there are a lot of
How many of these have you done?
What have these?
Yeah.
So on the purchase end, I have never.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what this is.
I've
It's
never.
a purchase program.
No. But I have paid it out before.
Okay.
Like I have paid multiple out.
On a refi.
Yes.
How
correct.
disappointed are the people on the refi when they have to pay it out?
Yeah, it's never fun on the their end of the incentive. But yeah, like there's a lot.
I guess it would be one of those examples of when a borrower is like, I hope that the appraised value of the house comes in low.
Yeah.
So I don't have to pay the government too much.
I guess that brings us to a good point is like, if you're in a market that we've been in like 99% of this time, then you want to pay it out as soon as possible, right? Like your first, obviously you're going to have to wait until your property does increase significantly just because you're not going to be able to finance over to that 80% point. But as soon as you do, I would say that it's a good time to pay it back. Yeah. And yeah, I was saying there is some other municipal kind of programs that are in place depending on where you are. These I've actually done a few times too. But municipalities, I guess you would call them, would have different programs as well, funded by the municipality.
Oh wow,
so
look
they
at that!
Work the same. Yeah.
Look at all this free money.
Yeah, there is a lot of free money going around. We're going to post these. They're going to be available to you either on our website or on our Instagram page. And here's a list of provincial programs as well. So there's a lot of provincial programs depending on where you are. I find this one the most interesting is the Manitoba Rural Home Ownership Program. Is there an urban part of Manitoba? I hope you're laughing at home. That was funny. I thought that was funny.
I think what's important to recognize here for this first-time homebuyers incentive plan, or any of these plans that, it's a charge on your property. It's going to affect the way you refinance. I think that in the current climate, at least from what I can tell, the one thing we're not addressing is helping Canadians maintain the affordability of their house.
Mm-hmm.
So they are first-time homebuyers. They bought their house for the first time. But now interest rates have risen to a level that it's very hard for them to debt service it. We've got a lot of people going to Cannect.ca and filling out our online form with, put their address in, and then they get what the pricing on a home equity loan would be. It would be great if there was some type of an assistance program similar to that, that could allow people that were in a more difficult financial position to access some kind of more efficiently priced capital.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our best at Cannect to make sure that the capital that we're offering home buyers who are in that situation is as efficiently priced as possible. And you can go to the website and you can, fill out your address, fill out some personal details, and you're going to get, a great rate offered to you in second position on your home.
Mm-hmm.
It works the same way for a purchase. But I think that is, it's important to recognize that this first-time homebuyer incentive program really isn't going to address all of the stress that's in the marketplace right now. And if you're watching this right now and you're thinking to yourself, geez, great, first-time homebuyer plan. I wish it was available when I bought my house.
Yeah.
Because now I could really use $30,000 because my expenses have increased significantly. Well, if you find yourself in that situation, you can go to Cannect.ca. You can fill out an online form. It takes seconds. You can find out in seconds what you're approved for. $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to bridge you while interest rates are high, to get you through a precarious financial position. That's what this is designed for. Mm-hmm. So if you're watching at home and you're wondering, this first-time homebuyer plan really doesn't fit for you, you already have your house. Cannect.ca, you can find out how much you can borrow. And the key to how we lend money, I can't say this enough, is we lend money and then we go to work and then we help people get back on stronger financial footing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know what? Another thing, actually, you were just mentioning there should be things for people, what if you just recently bought your home? What if you're running into financial trouble because of increasing interest rates?
Tell me, this is gonna be a good one. What do you got?
Interestingly enough, I have actually found recently, because most of the applications that come in online, myself or someone from our team that I work very closely with is dealing with these incoming applications. The time between when people buy their house and when people are applying on our website is shortening. I'm speaking to a lot of people that are like, I just put 5% down on my house not too long ago and I need help. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, in some situations like that, we're not
It's difficult to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even who cares how much they're putting down? That time frame is slimming, right? So like, I just bought a house. I got into the market. I'm super excited. I'm a first-time home buyer, and now raising interest rates are really hurting me.
Yeah, maybe it'd be good if the incentive program was kind of extended.
Right.
So like, you just bought a house and you can access this first-time home buyers incentive program for the first 5 years.
Right.
Let's say.
Yeah.
You meet the eligibility criteria. That's a hard one, man. Eligibility criteria. Anyways, you meet the eligibility criteria and, you need help 36 months in.
Right.
Still the same 5-year fixed rate mortgage. Still the same house that you bought. Be nice to pull the federal government in then.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Again, it's likely not going to happen. But
Right.
if you're in that case, give us a call and we'll try to find you the cheapest capital we can.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I did have a couple viewer questions that I wanted to go through.
Okay.
I specifically picked some viewer questions that had to do with purchasing a home, particularly for the first time in some instances.
Okay.
So I'm just going to pull some up and we'll start from the top. Hey guys, I'm looking to purchase my first place and I've been looking into pre-construction condo downtown, but have heard that I should wait because prices are going to drop. Do you suggest I wait, or should I go through with the purchase now before rates go up more? And an extension on that is, do we think that pre-construction condos are overpriced right now?
It's a good question. So there was an article recently that discusses how many pre-construction condos are coming onto the market in 2023, which is identified as kind of one of the main pain points in the real estate market. So there are about, I think it's like 40,000 pre-construction condo units coming onto the market in 2023. Say it's 30,000.
Okay.
The majority of those are coming on at the beginning of 2023, first 6 months of 2023.
Right.
Call it 20,000. Those purchasers are very likely going to see a difference between what they paid for those and what they will be approved for as far as the value is concerned for an appraiser appraising them at that time.
Right.
And they will be responsible for coming up with that difference. Right. So let's say, you bought a pre-construction condo. I mean, some of these condos were being sold at $1,600, $1,800 a square foot. But it was this roller coaster ride that real estate investors were on, where it was like, you could do no wrong buying pre-construction condos. They were just constantly increasing.
Right.
So I think that purchasers who bought pre-construction 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and that the units are coming online now are probably in for a challenge to close those, and they will very likely have to come up with some equity.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not have even been anticipating closing on them. They were probably planning on assigning them and making some money, right? That was the market. You could go in, you could buy a bunch of these pre-con units. Didn't matter what you paid for it. And when they came online, there was always someone willing to buy the paper from you at an increased price, right? Pre-construction always sells for more than existing.
Right.
It's brand new unit.
Right. Yeah.
That being said, there is a floor in the market, right? It's what existing units are selling for. It's also based on what it costs to build, right? The city of Toronto has been notoriously slow in approving developments. There are development charges. There is that, like, I can't it's impossible to underestimate the amount of, to overestimate. It's very difficult to understate the amount of cost that increasing timelines create for developers, right? When the city of Toronto is slow to respond to a developer, when the city of Toronto kind of increases the amount of bureaucracy and garbage that a developer needs to go through in order to get approvals, it increases the cost of a development.
Right.
And at the end of the day, those costs are borne by the purchasers. So the cost to develop in Toronto is high. Construction costs are high. The cost of money is increasing. All of those things prevent us from seeing a developer can't just sell units cheaper because, the market's turned. The developers are pulling projects offline. That's what's happened right now. Big developers are saying, we're not going to develop this project. We're going to wait. And that will create a pain point in the future. Like we're talking about, we need housing supply.
Right.
We got 500,000 immigrants coming in every year. Those people need to live somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a development process that is slowed down by the city, and that, construction costs have increased. All of those things now with a soft market are going to cause us to bring less inventory online at a time when demand is increasing. So at some point in the future, we're going to have another supply-demand imbalance.
Right.
It's just not going to happen in the first 6 months of 2023 when we've got a whole bunch of units coming online.
Right.
Who knows how quickly those units can get absorbed? It's another thing, right? Like we got a ton of immigration happening. We also have a ton of residential units coming online in the first half of 2023.
And we have a ton of first-time homebuyer incentives.
Yes. Yeah. Although like these condos,
I know.
these condos that we're talking about, it's unlikely that that the majority of them will meet the requirements of the first-time incentive, first-time homebuyer incentive plan. All I'm saying is, we very likely have a short-term, like a further drop in pre-construction,
mm-hmm.
but it is definitely mitigated by the supply-demand imbalance. And once the absorption of these units is complete, there's, we talked about it in our last show, right? If it costs $3,000 to rent one of these units, it's setting a floor for what the value of the unit is.
Right.
Right. Because it's cheaper to buy the thing. So that sets a floor for it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, if you've spent $1,500, $1,600, $2,000 per square foot for pre-construction, it's going to be difficult for an appraiser in this market to come up with your purchase price in the appraisal. And that will lead to some challenges for homeowners, for home buyers, struggling to close on those. And what does that mean? It means higher costs of borrowing, not just higher costs of borrowing because interest rates have gone up, higher costs of borrowing because there is additional risk on those files, right? So what are they going to have to do? Maybe they were accounting for buying and putting 20% down, and now part of their down payment is going to be absorbed in the difference between what they bought their unit for 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and what it got appraised for.
Right.
And what does that mean? Are they getting an insured mortgage now because of that? Or are they getting a second mortgage to supplement the down payment? All of these challenges, I'll put it to this way. You don't want to be going through this on your own. You need a good broker that can help you through these challenges. And these challenges aren't forever, right? If the belief is that the market will return, then it might make more sense to take a second mortgage for a shorter period of time. If your game plan is to hold out and sell the property when the market stabilizes, you figure out what your time horizon is, figure out what the game plan is, and we can help you with that. But definitely this. So the person's question was with respect to whether it's a good time to buy a pre-con. I think right now, if you're going in to buy a pre-construction unit, you could probably have the pick of the litter.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that the sales offices for pre-construction are teaming with people and lineups the way they once were.
Yeah.
So I think you can probably get some incentives to purchase. And I think that if you're buying pre-construction, you're not closing with today's interest rate, right? You're closing in 2 or 3 years when interest rates are going to be lower. So if you go into a builder office right now to buy pre-construction, I think you're probably going to get incentives with respect to how much money you've got to put down. So meaning maybe it's a more aggressive down payment structure. So you're putting less down. It's costing you less to carry the pre-construction unit. I think you probably get some upgrades for free. And then keep in mind that when that unit is done 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, the interest rate that you're going to get at that time isn't going to be today's rate.
Right.
We can widely accept that.
Right.
The only way that it would be today's rate, like whatever, 6% on a 5-year fixed rate, the only way that could be is if our economy keeps chugging along. Anecdotally, I'll tell you something. Our economy is not chugging along.
Right.
I love having discussions with people that are in different businesses because you get a real feel for what the leading indicators of our economy are telling us. So I played tennis this morning with my buddy Greg.
Okay.
And Greg has a valet business, very successful guy, wonderful, wonderful guy. One of his businesses is a valet business.
Right.
The valet business has set up at every kind of major mall, at least in Ontario. I'm pretty sure he's out west too. And he was like, Black Friday was a bust.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, the number of people that we anticipated to use valet services, and they arrive at those numbers kind of in concert with the mall that they're servicing and he was telling me the numbers. They were like 20% of what was anticipated. That is a leading indicator telling you that people are worried. I mean, I'm sure a little bit of it is, kind of every year more and more people are going to online shopping.
Yeah.
And not, walking into a shopping mall. But still, I'm sure that's accounted for in their projections. Yeah. And when your projections are 1/4 or 1/5 of what you were anticipating, that is telling you that the economy is weaker than what was anticipated. And it will take time, not a lot of time, but it will take 30, 60, 90 days for that information to filter in to the data that we see from Statistics Canada, from what the Bank of Canada will digest in their business outlook surveys that they conduct with business owners, for the banks to see this information, but it is coming. So in order for us to see interest rates at 6% in 2 years, we would have had to have seen strength.
Right.
And we're not seeing that.
Yeah.
Right. The consumer is stressed.
Right.
Consumer is worried. And that will come through more and more in numbers. And we're already seeing it. Listen, we've reached the peak interest. The fixed rate bond market is showing us that.
Right.
So, I really went in roundabout way answering your question here, but it might not be a bad time to buy a pre-construction condo. It might be a little bit better to buy a pre-construction condo at some point in the next 6 months. But it's now. It's now. Like, we're approaching that kind of sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think.
The pivot?
No. Remember,
I know.
It's like we're gonna reach a plateau and then we're gonna pivot.
Right.
And yesterday, the chairman of the Federal Reserve in the States came out and said, although we still have a lot of work to do to fight inflation, we expect that the size of our interest rate increases is going to be reduced. Right? It's like acceleration and velocity. You know the difference between acceleration and velocity?
Like it's like when you like jump on a train that stops and you keep going forward.
Man, I'd love to live inside your brain.
Okay. Hi, guys. I'm hoping you can help me figure out a solution because I've hit a wall at my bank. Common. I want to buy my first home, but I work in sales, so most of my earnings are based on my commissions. I've been trying to get approved for a mortgage at my bank, but they won't approve me for anywhere near the amount that I want. They won't recognize all the commissions income I generate, and I've heard of alternative lenders and understand that their interest rates are quite high. Are they my only option? First off, they're not that high. They're really not that high.
It's very interesting when you look at the rates in today's market,
Right.
how similar the cost of a private mortgage is to a 5-year fixed rate for an A borrower.
Yeah.
That spread has never been tighter.
Right.
So I think it's time that it's important to look at what the actual impact on your affordability is between these different options. Also, it's like there's a Black Friday sale on real estate right now.
Right.
Like, I don't
Cyber Monday.
It's like again, and it's kind of similar to the acceleration versus velocity now that I think about it. It's like the leading indicator for the prices of real estate is, so like real estate prices are going to decrease and have been decreasing. And the leading indicator for that is how few sales are happening, right? So we are decelerating the real estate market and our velocity is coming down, right? And at a certain point, we will accelerate and the prices will come back up. So for somebody who is trying to stretch to make a purchase right now, listen, there's always people that are stretching to make a purchase.
Yeah.
Especially self-employed people. And if you run a successful business, you can run your finances successfully. For some reason, except if you're a doctor. Apparently doctors are pretty bad at this. I don't know why. It's like,
it's a stressful job.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a stressful job.
But if you as a self-employed business owner are looking to kind of exceed what your bank is going to approve you for, you should understand two things. Number one, your bank is being conservative with how much they're going to approve you for. Number two, your bank is being more conservative right now on what they're going to approve you for because of the way the market is. The bank, psychologically, there are people in the bank that operate the same way that everyone else does, based on greed and fear. Perhaps even more so on the greed side if you're working at a bank. Anyways, but if you need to purchase for more in today's environment, you're probably better off than you were purchasing for more in last year's environment.
Right.
So again, we spoke a little bit about this in past episodes, like buying when everything is priced perfect, like when, interest rates are zero, asset prices are high, you're going to stretch to make that purchase. You are assuming that the value of what you are buying is going to increase. It's very difficult for that value to increase unless some impact is felt on our economy more positive than 0% interest rates. So there's a higher risk at that time. Whereas right now, interest rates are about as high as we're going to see them. The only option on the horizon line is for the economy to get a little worse. Property values will fall a little bit more. And then interest rates will fall. And then asset prices will start going up again. It's not a bad time.
No, for sure. And I think just to get into his question a little bit more with like, I went to my bank, I'm on a commission, there's a lot of salespeople or people who work commission or get a bonus or stuff like that. I went to my bank, I went to one place and I asked one person, one question. You know what I mean? Whereas like, if you want to really go to the water park, are you just going to ask mom or are you going to ask dad too? Right. So, asking around and making sure you get the best, answer to your question, coming to a broker, we do that for you, right? Like Cannect does that for you. You have a particular situation that you're in. We know exactly where your home is, right? So, going to your bank and relying on your bank is, in my opinion, a huge mistake,
I mean, you're not even without even mentioning that the people that work at the banks are actually legislated to not be required to be educated on mortgages. Like how much more clear can you get than that?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the banks don't say that in their advertising campaigns.
Yeah. It wouldn't sound good.
If they did, what would that commercial sound like? Come to TD to get your mortgage, where every single person that works here only knows our products.
Yeah.
Come bank here at Bank of Montreal, where everybody in our bank is ignorant to any other product that might be able to help you other than the ones that our bank has.
Come get your mortgage at Scotiabank. The guy who's going to give it to you just started last week and knows absolutely nothing.
Oh, he'll give it to you all right.
Oh. Okay, so we got one more question here. Basically, they're saying so they want to purchase a home. Cost of living is high, and they don't have a substantial down payment. So, what tips do you have for putting yourself in a better saving position?
Listen, this is about as simple as it gets here.
Okay.
How do you save more money?
Spend less.
Yeah, spend less than what you make.
Right.
And understand that there is a benefit to having money saved.
Right.
And you know what that benefit is? Compound interest.
Okay.
If you put your money into some investment that provides you with compound interest, like the MIC, like our mortgage investment fund,
right?
And you are returning, you are receiving 9% as a return every year,
right?
The law of 72 says that in 8 years, your money doubles. Okay. Law of 72 is just take the number 72, divide it by the return that you are making, and the equal output is the number of years.
Okay.
12% yield, your money's doubled in 6 years. Okay.
Right.
Now, in the past, compound interest rates for a risk-free investment were never this high. But because of the market that we're in right now, they're higher and higher and higher.
Right.
There is a real benefit. There always has been a real benefit to investing your money and to saving your money. That benefit is more pronounced now than it has been in the past.
Right.
Inflation's causing that. The problem is the inflation's also increasing everyone's debt load, which is preventing them from being able to save any money.
Right.
Okay. But there's a really interesting parallel here to how humans deal with climate change. Okay.
Okay.
Unfortunately, like humans, people are programmed to not prepare. Unfortunately, we are very, very bad at preparing for a coming catastrophe. We are much better at adapting to the catastrophic environment.
Right.
So if you think about this in the form first of climate change, okay? Unless you're like, it is very difficult to understand a world where you can deny climate change, right?
Right.
Like there's clearly something going on in the environment. And we are having a more pronounced impact on that environment every year. Okay? We've kind of brought on these heroes to help us stop climate change, right? Elon Musk,
Greta
electric
Thunberg.
car, right? Greta Thunberg, yeah, sure. I don't know what she's done. She just complains about it. But listen, like wind and solar energy and carbon capture programs and carbon taxes, all of these things combined, I think have had like a net benefit of zero.
Right.
Okay. Because what humans will do is what they've always done. They will stare down the barrel of the catastrophe and they will keep going towards the catastrophe. And water levels will rise and Miami will be underwater and people will move and they'll go to another area and they'll live there. They will adapt to this coming crisis. And it is the same thing as saving money. You know you should save money.
Right.
You know you want money for a down payment. But you don't fully realize, we don't really fully think about the benefit of that compound interest. Because it's not awesome and sexy and you can't drive it right away. You can't wear it on your wrist or wear it out and get compliments on it. So for the most part, we ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so critical for your psychological well-being, right? Put some money away. Treat it as with the same level of importance as making yourself feel better momentarily by buying that thing that you want.
Right.
Short-term pain, long-term gain. And right now, it should be more pronounced than ever for you because interest rates are so high.
Mm-hmm.
You can get so much marginal utility out of that money in the future. So save some money right now. Spend less than what you're making, especially in an environment like we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you will reap the benefit in the future. That being said, we haven't done a damn thing about climate change.
Mm.
And it's very unlikely that drawing a parallel between climate change and compound interest is going to affect anybody's mentality on this. But I can tell you that, we are biologically programmed like this for some reason, right? Like our brains are wired like this. Like there are certain things that humans are capable of that are just extraordinary. And then there are other things where like we're programmed for that it's like, geez, how does that make sense? But I think it's like from kind of the caveman days, right?
Yeah.
The caveman brain that we have isn't programmed to think much beyond, I better make sure that I have food.
Fine.
And if I have food for a little while, that's a good thing. Yeah. But I thought that was a very interesting parallel, right? Like think about climate change. Like all of these things that we're doing to stop climate change amount to nothing.
Right. It amounts to something more than it did 10 years ago, though.
Maybe. Are you sure?
Marginally.
Are you sure that the net benefit has improved any from 10 years ago to now? Are you sure about that? Because hang on a second. China and India are polluting more than they've ever polluted.
Right.
So, okay, back to the drop in the bucket.
Right.
We can sell carbon tax credits and we can introduce as much wind and solar as we want. And we can do all of these things. But are we making an incremental benefit on an annualized basis? Is it better than it was 10 years ago? I couldn't answer that for you. I couldn't say definitively yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can just see that from human history, we are much better at adapting than we are at fixing.
Right. Maybe I just live in my own bubble, but I put my bottle in the recycling and I didn't do that 10 years ago. So.
All right. Well, there's the incremental benefit. There was one thing.
Thanks for saving the world, Justin.
Yeah, no problem. Wow, that was great. Thanks, Marcus, for being here with us.
Yeah. No, thank you, buddy. It's always fun.
Anytime. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching here on YouTube. As always, we hope you enjoyed the show. Please be sure to write us a comment with your thoughts below. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you next time.